lot of questions for Nathacha. I might not be able to ask all of them because I hope you will all also have questions for her, so we can give the floor to the public. So please enter your questions either in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll make sure that we read them out loud. And if we have time, we will also open the microphone to the public. But what I would like to know, first of all, is your book offers a richness of themes and reflections to the reader, from child abuse to parenting, from the pursuit of happiness through status or through dreams, to multiple intelligence, from juvenile imprisonment to liberation, and the importance of naming a child. One of the aspects that makes your book so universally appealing is the quasi-anonymity of the country or town. We realize it's France because there are some geographical places mentioned like the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, but isn't it just beyond France? Couldn't this story happen anywhere?
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Nathacha, for the introduction, and hi, everybody. Yes, I guess it could happen anywhere. I wish so, because I think that's the great gift of fiction writing, is to appeal to everyone, to touch everyone. I think I chose to blur a little bit the context, because the book that I published, the one before that, was called Tropic de la Violence, Tropic of Violence, which is published at Grey Wolf also, was very specifically about one island, about the geopolitical issues and social issues of the island. And I wanted something that could be a heart-to-heart fiction writing, something about the details of relations between parents and a child. And that's why I think that even if we can recognize, of course, France, I mean, even by the way the prisons are organized, it is very specific to France. When Phoenix gives birth to Lou, it is very specific to France also. And I like to think that if you live in France, you can recognize some of the towns. So yes, it could happen everywhere, because it tackles all these themes.
So did you base your story on a fait divers, something that actually happened, or is it all a product of your imagination?
Well, maybe I can take a few minutes to talk about the genesis of this book. It's been a few years. I have been quite obsessed about juvenile imprisonment in France and in general. And I think that actually The Sky Above the Roof is my 7th novel. But I think you can find these imprisonment in I mean in a prison, but also imprisonment in a culture, in a belief, imprisonment in a love story, imprisonment within yourself. You can find it in my presented books. But for this one, I had this intention of tackling this this subject in a frontal way. So I did some quite a bit of research in juvenile centers here in France, and I had what we call here a stage, which is how would you say that, Sarah?
Internship.
Yeah, it's not really a stage, it's an observation stage. I wrote to a couple of juvenile centers in France. There are many juvenile centers in France, and there is this director of La Maison d'Arrêt, which is a prison, but which is a prison where people that have not been judged Okay.
Yeah, the detention, I think it
A
would be
detention
detention
center.
center in
Yes.
English. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. A detention center. And here in Normandy, I wrote long letters and long emails trying to convince these directors to have me for a few hours. And he accepted, and he said, okay, you can't spend a day, but you can spend a few hours for a few weeks. So I would go there and I would spend 1 hour on Tuesday and 2 hours on Thursday. And he would say to me, you don't speak, you just stay here in the entrance office of the juvenile quarter, and you just listen. You don't ask any question, you don't make yourself seen. And I have this bizarre ability of making myself very unseen. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I have been a journalist. So I just sat there and I didn't speak. And then I just listened. But the thing is, I really wanted to write about a young boy who had been detained, and what would be his life in this prison while waiting for going in front of a judge. But the thing is, the first day I arrived at the prison, it was a visitation day.
Mm-hmm.
So I waited. There were all the families that were there, and I just remarked, I just observed that there were only women who were waiting to see their sons or their brothers or their husbands. And that changed my idea. I thought, oh, maybe it could be a work about a family, about a mother or a sister. It was quite, it was not very clear at that moment, but seeing all these women, seeing their beauty and their vulnerability and the way they spoke to each other, I thought about that. I thought about this book that could be a book about family ties. That's why there's Lou, of course, but there is also his mother and his sister.
Well, thank you for that explanation, actually. So I think it will answer Melina Santoro, who had actually written in the chat about asking a little bit more about the genesis of the book. It is true that it is a book about juvenile imprisonment, and from the start, because the détenu, the number, the detainee, the poem at the beginning, which kind of echoes the fact that the title is also a poem of Verlaine, talks about Lou, I mean wolf in English, imprisonment. But throughout the book, when we read the story, we start to reflect on the very notion of imprisonment. What does it mean? And so I was wondering, as I read through the book, I was wondering whether not only besides the juvenile imprisonment of Wolf, if not Wolf himself, he has such a strange personality. He definitely is very smart, and that's why I was talking about multiple intelligence before, is because he is smart, but is different, right? So isn't he a little bit imprisoned in himself, and at the same time, isn't he a prisoner, especially after his sister leaves, is a prisoner in his mom's house, and then both the sister, Paloma, and the mother, Phoenix, formerly known as Eliette, aren't they also prisoners of themselves? Isn't that like the whole thing is about the prison because of their relationship? The way Phoenix was also prisoner of a parents' image that they had for her when she was growing up before she exploded. Isn't it all about prison? Not just
it's about the numerous multiple invisible prisons that we can have as soon as we are born. We can be born in a family with very strong traditions in which we don't agree. We can be born in cultures that tell us what to do and what not to do. We can be born in a certain, as Eliette, in a certain type of beauty that can be seen as a type of prison. There is this word in French, and I tried to before we had this meeting, I tried to translate it, but I couldn't find. It's empêchement. It's when you are refrained from in your own life, in your own belief. And I think that this is a story about how everybody builds its own prison. Lou, I like to think that the house in which he was brought in with his mother and his sister is a prison, but his mother never thought of that this way. And it is also a book about the way we love each other, but sometimes we don't love people as they would like us to love them. Love is such a complex thing. We do, actually, I think we do love the way that we have been taught how to love. And sometimes this love is not at all understood by the people that we do send this love to. So this is as the form of the book, actually, which is a multiple voice book. I think this is multiple prison book, multiple ways of enfermement, of imprisonment in yourself.
Yeah, this is actually very nice what you said, because the book is really polyphonic. There
Yes.
is different style of thought processing, whether it is the point of view of Wolf, or the point of view of Paloma, or the
Yes.
point of view of Dr. Michel, or the point of view, of course, of Phoenix, the mother. Now, when I read the book, the story of Eliette, who becomes Phoenix, and before she explodes at age 11, reminded me of one of the first major scandal, or let's say criminal story in the United States when I arrived in the US. It was just not just when I arrived, but a few years later. So that dates back almost 30 years now. But about 25 years ago, there was the horrible murder of a little girl called John Bennett Ramsey, who was a beauty pageant, and she was sort of pampered and made up, and hairdressed properly, and all the dresses, etc., by her parents, and she won many titles as a queen of the pageant, of the child pageant. And so I've always looked at those pageantry things very suspiciously, especially for children, because there's a sexualization which is, whether meant or not, exist of the child. And so what about Eliette? Is she parodied? What do you think? Was it, did you watch some children pageantry, or?
No, I didn't. I didn't, and I didn't think of John Bennett Ramsey. This is I know about the story. Actually, when I thought about writing about the mother and the sister, and I had this the character of Lou quite clearly in my head. He was this silent boy, quite different, very intelligent, and I thought how his mother could be, how the mother could be something of a very impressive figure, a very strong woman, a woman who had a peculiar childhood that would made her strong and a bit harsh. And I had I have one of my friends, my close friends, who had been doing pageants since she was quite young, and we talked a little bit about that. So I kind of asked her if I could, use a little bit of her anecdotes. She would sing very well. She would not be really in a pageant, but she has this wonderful singing voice, and which, I mean, when you have this talent, this thing that you can't explain, and when your parents or when other people exploit this talent, it can be very violent. So she did inspire me for that.
Right. It is even in the book when you read that part when she exploded on stage following something that happens to her that I'm not going to talk about because I want people to read the book. And it is mentioned in the text that she resembled a Lolita, and of course, as soon as you read the word Lolita, whether in French or in English, you immediately think about the book by Nabokov,
of course.
and you know that there is some kind of objectification of the person that is there. So it means the parents are responsible as well.
Yeah, the thing is, the context in which the parents are, they were her father works in a factory, her mother is a stay-at-home mother, and they have this child late in life. This is something that is quite important. And when they have this child, for everybody who wants a child and has a child late in life, it's like a God-given gift. But not only is a God-given gift, but she is so beautiful. She is an angel, and everybody says she is an angel. And they seem to have a responsibility of sharing this gift. But I'm making that into quotes, of saying we have this wonderful thing at home, this child that can sing, that is so beautiful to look at, and everybody encourages them. Oh, maybe she can sing at the factory party. And this small thing, singing for a Christmas party, and then singing for a birthday party, and then everybody says, oh, this is the girl that sings well. And it's a small community, it's a middle class community, and then maybe she could be booked for the factory Christmas party. It just builds up. And then I think it contributes also to the parents, having another social status than just being factory workers.
Yes.
Now they do have a child that is not like us, like them, a child that is so much more beautiful, that sings well, that carries herself well. And I really don't think that, of course they have their responsibility, but they never did it on purpose.
It seems like that
it's just a build-up.
Yes. Sorry? It all comes from the little girl who actually become also a beautiful adolescent and then becomes a beautiful woman. And she seems to me like she's carrying this gift of beauty and of a voice as a burden, and then she ends up, tattooing her body with beautiful tattoos that you describe so well in the book. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe she's rebelling against the gift of beauty, but is she objectifying herself in a different way?
No, I don't think so. I think that when she, I wouldn't want to say when she's an adolescent and she does something quite drastic to her parents' house, and she changes her name. I think for her, choosing her own name, choosing her own path, choosing her own way of living, it's a woman that works in spare parts. So she always has her hands dirty. She lives in a house that is quite far from town, and she sells spare parts, vehicle spare parts. So, and she always has this fuel odor on her. And for me, the different tattoos are not a way of objectifying her. I think for Phoenix, it's a way of possessing of inhabiting her own skin. This is mine and mine only. I don't belong to anyone. My heart, my mind, my skin doesn't belong to anyone. So I will tattoo my skin, and what is quite was quite interesting for me to work on is that she always tattoos on her skin things that fly, a dragon or an ivy. Pictures of not static things, but things that fly, things that grow, and she is in need of that, of flying, of growing, of actually being something else than what her parents made her.
Yes, it's a sort of rebellion, but at the same time, it becomes a big part of the attraction that Dr. Michel falls for her, because I won't say more about that. But it is interesting also the reflection about the covers of the book. So I'm going to show.
Yes. Can I add something about Phoenix, Sarah?
Phoenix?
Yes. Can I add something about?
Yes, sure.
Yes. No, I just wanted to say that for me, she's a very strong woman. She's a woman that has is a single mother. She works, she gives birth in a quite independent and very strong way. Of course, she loves her children in a peculiar way, but still, for me, she's quite strong.
No, she definitely is the strong element of the book and a strong character. I mean, she's very impressive. You know, she could inspire. When you read it as the reader, okay, when you're not identifying yourself with either the mother Phoenix or the daughter Paloma, but if you read it just as a woman, you feel almost empowered by the character of Phoenix, because of the way she gets out of prison that was building around her since her childhood, and she decides what, like you said, my own skin, etc., and giving birth the way she does. So that is very empowering. But when we look then at the way she has empowered herself, she's become strong. But then the effect that strength, which is a little bit associated with coldness, because maybe she's afraid of giving all the love, that she has also inside to her kids, because she's maybe unable or refused to breastfeed them. She wants to use only the bottles. She doesn't even, from what we read from Paloma point of view and Wolf point of view, we understand that she doesn't exactly tell them that she loves them, and that she she doesn't even use affectionate words or give them hug when that's all they want. And so it's almost, the reader could feel it's a revenge but it's not. It's probably that she doesn't want to become like her parents. She doesn't want that.
Absolutely. She doesn't. She wants to be a different parent. Although I must specify that giving the bottle to a child is not a harshness; it's a
It
choice.
is in the States.
Oh yeah, I would know, but it's a choice. Every woman has the right to breastfeed or give a bottle. That's not you know, that's not a symptom, the harshness or what. But still, she thinks that being too close to her kids, like her parents were too close to her, will mess them up. So she keeps this distance, but still she's there. She works. There's a roof. She protects them. She gave them those beautiful names. So well.
Yeah, those are really beautiful names, actually. So it's interesting because I remember there's another book, oh gosh, which dates back to 2006 at least, the French version, L'élégance du hérisson, where the little
Oui.
girl is also called Paloma. So yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's true. So I wanted to mention something surprising for me as a reader of both French and English books, and is often the cover. Now, in general, the French cover, because here in the US we have hardcover, which are horrible because they weigh a ton, and then if you, like me, read in a horizontal position and it falls on your face, it knocks you out. And then you have soft cover, which obviously takes also less place than the hardcovers on the shelves. And so I love the fact that your editor, Grey Wolf Press, has actually used a soft cover from the start. But I was intrigued because in France, the only nice and attractive cover, they're all soft covers, even the first edition. But the Gallimard, for instance, or POL, they're all white and with the name and author, and that's it. But the folio has these great covers in general. And often a buyer of a book in France will be attracted by a title, but if he or she buys a book in the folio, they will be also attracted by the cover. So here we have the cover of the translation, and because of my, that you can see, and it shows the houses with the sky above the roof. And here you have the cover of the French folio, which is a little girl who's obviously trying to make up her face.
Yeah, she smudges.
Smudges, etc. And you understand after when you start to read why. So I'm wondering why did the French folio chose to focus on the little girl while the Americans focused strictly on the title of the book? Why such a gap? According to
I think that this is a question for editors, for publishing houses, not for me. I do feel, because I also read English books in English, and and since I have been some translation, I feel that the folio, the paperback in France, especially the folio, have many faces. They tend to faces or hands or body parts. I have noticed that these last few years for France, and I love the American cover. So
it's the best of both worlds then.
Yeah.
Now, your translator, Geoffrey Strachan, I'm used to read his translations because he also translates books by other French authors. I have a couple of questions that I will regroup into one main question, because having read both the French and the translation, I realized that there were a few changes in the English version. Like a title of a song, for instance, in the original, she sings "À la Clairefontaine," which is a song which has some erotic elements in it, and which could be, therefore, when Eliot sings when she's a little girl, which could have an effect on the adult seeing this little girl singing, which is totally different than if she sings "Au clair de la lune," which doesn't really have any erotic elements in it.
I don't think, sorry, because here À la Clairefontaine is a lullaby as Au clair de la lune, because À la Clairefontaine is an old song.
Very old, yeah.
Yeah, very old, with 5 parts. And here in France, we sing only the first part, which is À la Clairefontaine, M'en allant promener, etc. We don't sing the second and the third part where the girl is naked. So I know that I have she's not small now, she's an adolescent, but when she was a child, we used to sing only the first part, and it was the same. It was a lullaby as La Clairefontaine. And when Geoffrey, sorry, George is the father of Phoenix. When Geoffrey asked me about À la Clairefontaine, and he said that and nobody would know À la Clairefontaine, that Au clair de la lune was mieux. So
okay,
I respect him a lot.
I guess he made probably the choice because of the famous song that everyone would know in the United States, which is in English, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you know,
Okay.
which would be the star and lune, you know, Au clair de la lune would probably
okay,
the link. I think that must have been the reason. But it, yeah, I mean, there are also different changes, in particular when Wolf is named Wolf, and the reference.
I know.
But I mean, it was surprising for me, because being French, I understood all of the French references. But maybe the you know the reader,
yeah.
the reader.
Actually, we do go a lot. Well, I don't know if it would interest you, but Geoffrey doesn't have an email.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, you know. So I've known him since 2008, 2009, when he translated my book called The Lost Brother. And I was living in Mayotte Island at the time, and he would write to me. It would take 2 or 3 weeks for his letter to arrive. I would answer, and then we would go back and forth this way, and we still do it. But in between those, when I came back, we do speak to each other on the phone once or twice. And if it is urgent, he will fax something. Fax, you know, an old word. He will fax something to my usually, you know, it's my English editor, Macleo's Press. He would fax Macleo something, and somebody at Macleo's would type this fax in a mail, would send me a mail. So that's why
it's a real long process. Yes.
Yeah, but I actually do like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's his way of working. I respect him, and well,
it's
why
great
not?
Because it allows for time. The fact that it's slower, it allows for more reflection.
Yeah, and you know, for my last book, which is called Rien ne t'appartient, I have another translator.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and his name is Geoffrey, and not his. Geoffrey, not Geoffrey. I don't know that the pronunciation is the same. It's like Nathacha and Nathacha. It's the same, but the sorry, I don't remember his name. But he's a young man, and he sends me email and everything. I had my first feeling was that it was too quick. I had to slow down a little bit. He said, "Could you answer me tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh, tomorrow." It seems so quick to me.
No. I understand the feeling, because sometimes when under pressure, absolutely. Now, one thing I loved in your writing of the book is how there are some little clues all around the book. And that will
Yes.
be my my question before last. I have one more question before I give the floor to the public. You know, there is the Paloma who leaves her parents, the same pattern as Phoenix when she was called Iliad, who leaves
Yes.
the parents. And then the similarity between Wolf and his grandfather, they both are able to repair small things, you know, like the maternal grandfather. So how do you, when you write a book, how do you link all those clues together? Is it already everything in your head from the start, or you reread and you say, oh, I need to put a clue there or something like that?
Well, first of all, thank you, because I think it's so touching and fulfilling for us authors to know that when sometimes readers do notice these things. So thank you, Sarah. Actually, I don't think of those things in advance, but I am someone that you know, I often write one version and then a second version and then a third version, and I do feel that by doing this, by writing many versions, it's a way for me to it's like years between the characters. It's a metaphor of the characters living together and trying to build something together. I mean, I think that in the first version, these little similarities didn't exist. But in the second and in the third, it seems that there's something magical that happens in between the characters themselves. And I thought it was quite poetic that even if Lou doesn't know his grandfather, there is something about the hidden memory. I am quite interested in that, is how sometimes we carry something in ourselves, a way of doing things, a way of speaking, or a way of expressing ourselves, that sometimes in our family somebody would say, oh, you speak like your great aunt, and you don't know what this great aunt is. And I do feel that these things, that they bring me hope. I don't know why, but I think that there's something very calming to that, to know that we are not alone, that we carry something generation after generation. That's why even if Lou is quite a lonely boy, he still carries things, a skill that he doesn't know where it comes from, but it comes from his grandfather, even if his mother doesn't tell him these things.
Yes, and it is really truly interesting because the grandfather could repair everything. The mother works with all those small parts. Yes. And Wolf, you know, has inherited this, that he doesn't know that it comes from his grandfather. So it's, I really liked, and I agree with you, actually. I love the whole concept of hidden memories and things that come from generations before, all to us, even though we didn't know. And you know, and sometimes even you take an old photo of 100 years old, you know, or more, like at the beginning of photography, and then somebody will say, you see, I told you you were looking like this and that, and you find the resemblance. This is interesting. Now I have one last question. At the end, in the last pages, we twice read that Wolf has closed his heart, and that is a very small sentence, but very strong, I feel. And so I mean, I reread this entire few last pages twice or three times because I was very moved by what was happening, and that sentence was coming back, and I felt, is there no redemption possible for Phoenix and for Wolf? Does the sentence means that Wolf life is terminated because of the violence of the eight or 10 or more days in?
No.
Is it hopeless?
No, I think it was contextual, because he has closed his heart because he spent these days in prison. He has been, well, when I researched, when I was in this juvenile center, these young people told me that one way of dealing with those hours, these long hours, day and night, night and day and night, is by closing a little bit,
Wow.
closing your heart, closing your mind, closing your mouth. And that's why I said that. But I do like to think that the way the book ends in this place, in this very place, is something of a clear sky.
Mhm.
Oh, sky over the roof, clear sky. See, not
Yes,
prepared.
there was this hope because the Paloma's sister, as who had not seen the mom for 10 years, they're finally regrouping
Yeah.
in the communal love for Wolf. Each one has a different love, and then Wolf, having this long monologue, which is absolutely beautiful, where he talks and explains what happened.
Yeah.
And it is somebody who doesn't really talk, so this was a very powerful moment at the end. And so I was like, and then this sentence, I was like, oh no.
No. I think no, it's contextual.
Okay, right. Well, thank you so much, Nathacha. We have,
Sarah.
I guess, well, apart from Milena, who actually had a question in the Q&A about, and that you answered. I want to read just before I leave Nathacha Zavatskaya this time to read out any other questions. I want to say something about the breastfeeding because Mélanie Laforce, who's one of our students here, she wrote about the Leche League.
Yeah, here also we have the Leche League.
Oh, in France also,
yes.
But here in the US, it's really a
encourage.
pressure.
Yeah.
It's more than
I am all for encouragement, but I'm not for forcing people to do things they want to do.
Yes. Do we have any other questions in the Q&A?
Right. Yes, we have a question from Jeffrey, who says, I would love to ask about the names of characters, something Sarah touched upon already a little bit. So in French, Phoenix is such an evocative name, and loup is actually a common name in French, but in English, wolf is markedly uncommon. And Paloma is highlighted in the English translation as meaning dove, which wasn't mentioned in the French, by the way. Were those, looks like Jeffrey read both versions also very attentively. Were those animal names something you especially hoped to make explicit in English? So did you try to?
Well, I would like to answer for the French version. Actually, of course, Phoenix is this this mythical bird that comes alive from the ashes. And in French, loup means wolf, and actually there is this expression in French, sorry, meaning mordre la vie à pleines dents, meaning I don't think there is an equivalent, but it's really getting out there and biting into life. And Phoenix really thinks that for a boy, for her son, she needs to give him a name that will enable him, because she thinks that a name changes everything. She didn't like her first name, the name her parents gave to her. She didn't like that. And she thought that having a name that suits you, that suits your life, can change your existence. And she thought that giving her son the name of an animal that thrives, that survives, would be good for him. And for her daughter, she was in a different mood. It was her first child. It was a daughter, and she thought of La Colombe, which is a paloma, a dove, which is a bird of peace.
Thank you. I think that definitely answers the question.
Oh, Jeffrey is here, my translator for my new book.
Oh, that's the one who took the question.
Oh,
who asked the
yeah,
question
yeah.
then. Yeah, talking about
He's the one who says to answer very quickly. Actually, much more quickly than the other translator.
Good, good. Well, we have one more question here from Joel. I enjoyed the way Nathacha described. Oh, I'm sorry. First, we have a question from Milena. How many languages do you speak, and do the other languages come through and haunt you when you write in French?
Ooh. I like the haunting thing. No, I do. Well, I speak Creole. I speak Mauritian Creole. I don't write Mauritian Creole because I wasn't taught to. So I don't know how to write it. Now there is a way, in graphie, how would you, please help me, Sarah, which is the word for graphie d'une langue. A way of
the writing of the
yes, because when I was born and when I was at school in Mauritius, there was no way of writing Creole. There wasn't a language, actually, a written language.
Yeah.
It wasn't a written language. It was only a spoken language. So now it is a written language, but as I have never learned how to write it, I can, of course, read it. I understand a bit of Hindi. I understand a bit of Telugu and Tamil, but I wouldn't know how to have a conversation. And I understand and write English. I understand a bit of Spanish, and but I have always written in French. I think I have learned maybe the books that I read that forged the way I thought, the way I liked literature, the things that they said to me, they spoke to me, the way they spoke to me. These books were in French, but they don't come to haunt me. No.
Good.
I think that could be quite interesting, actually.
Sure. We have one more question here in Q&A. I enjoy the way Nathacha from Joel. I enjoy the way Nathacha Appanah described what's happening in a wolf's mind, like rhyming, and I like that part too a lot. Does he show some autistic trait?
Yeah, thank you. I always thought that he was this kind of boy who would see what was behind things, like he would see something, a face or an object, but he would see what was behind the object. I always thought that poets would do that they would have a way of telling us our reality in such a sensible way, and I always wanted Wolf to be a kind of a poet.
Yeah,
thank you. So any more questions? I wanted to ask, so obviously Phoenix parents didn't do a good job. At least they probably tried, but it turned out that they didn't, and Phoenix her whole life was resenting them. Did you mean Phoenix herself to be worthy of resentment from her children?
Could you ask that again, please?
When you developed the character of Phoenix, when she became a mother, when she had Wolf and Wolf, you said that she was a very strong woman, so she was harsh. I understand all the reasons why she didn't want to show love to her kids, But I just like was imagining myself to be Paloma, for example. That would probably leave my mom as well, and I would probably resent her my whole life. When you were creating the character of Phoenix, did you mean her to be worthy of resentment? Did you think that she deserved that?
I know, I understand what you say, what you're saying, but there is something we haven't talked about, is the secrets. What we tell our parents and what we don't tell our parents. What we tell our children and what we don't tell our children. And the way Phoenix acted and brought up her children is a very peculiar way, and we could understand why Paloma left the house and never came back and never did a phone. But I always thought that if Paloma knew what was happening, what was the childhood of Phoenix, she would show a little more grace to her mom.
Interesting. Thank you. I am reading a Russian author right now. She was exploring the same theme. So I thought it was very interesting. Well, thank you very much. Well, your last chance. Do we have any more questions? If not, I think it's been an hour. So we're going to round it off. I remind that the book is available here in DC. You can order it online through Bonjour Books DC. I just dropped the link, so you can click on it right now in the chat, so it's saved in your browser. Or you can stop by Bonjour Books DC, say hello to Jennifer, and get your copy. I really encourage you to read it. It's a really fascinating read. And thank you so much, Nathacha, for joining us, for finding time to speak to the Alliance Française of Washington.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yes,
it's a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you all for joining us today.
Oh, and somebody is actually, just to let you know, Joelle, who asked the last question, was in Australia.
Oh, wow. 3 continents today. Woohoo! Amazing. I'm loving that. Well, thank you.
It's 3 a.m. in Australia.
Wow.
And it's 3 a.m. in Australia.
Wow.
That is dedication.
Bravo.
Joelle, bravo. This
That's
is dedication to literature. You're really fantastic. Kudos to you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, and maybe to see you sometime in DC. That would be a pleasure to have you in person.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.